Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today we're talking about the wonderful Series X or Series S again. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. So here's what I did. Okay, I have a 1440p monitor that I picked up last night so that I could bring you more accurate more accurate information about the power and the quality of the Xbox Series S. So yes, I have put my money where my mouth is when I say that this Series S is definitely a compatible next gen console that will be able to get you pretty much through this current generation that we're going into. I firmly believe that now. So I went out and I bought the LG Ultra Gear 1440p 165 hertz refresh monitor. This is a pretty decent monitor. I mean, it cost me $400 on sale. It's pretty high quality. It has HDR support. It has, 2 HDMI ports. Like this thing is a pretty decent monitor. I wouldn't say it's like the highest top of the line you could get, but it's pretty dang good. Like it's $400 for this monitor is a pretty decent price. Now you can get other monitors for a lower cost, that still have these same features. They weren't in stock. This was the one they had in stock. So I was like, all right, cool. I need to get it because I've got testing to do for this Xbox Series S. So, when I come home, I decided to pick up a copy of Riders Republic on the PlayStation 5 as well. So that I could do a video about that. I've been sitting here now for the last few hours, for the last couple of hours, just kind of doing comparisons because, well, I can't have my Series X and my Xbox Series S on at the same time, comparing shot for shot or whatever, because I can only sign into one game at a time because, yeah, like it's weird. If I try to sign into the game on both consoles, then it kicks me out of one of them. So that was pointless. So is what I did was I just started comparing these games. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, MXGP 2021, Riders Republic, and a few other games that I have because I've bought a lot of copies of games on the PlayStation 5 as well that I already have on the Series X because I've been doing comparisons. Far Cry 6. There's plenty of games that I have to compare. And I'm telling you, when I'm looking at some of these games on the Series S versus my PlayStation 5 on the 4K TV, I gotta be honest, man, there's really not that big of a gap because when you're playing Series S on a 1440p monitor or 1080p or whatever, and you still have the HDI support, it looks sharp. It looks crisp. It looks like you are playing, like I'm playing on my PlayStation 5 on my 4K TV. Like it's not that big of a difference. Most of these games do have the same performance as well. So, you're getting, 60 frames per second. The only really big one that I've been able to test that's really not holding up that well is Guardians of the Galaxy. That game has an unlocked frame rate, but it's still, even with the VRR enabled on the screen, it still feels a little janky. Not too much though. Definitely if you just switch it off and play it at the 30 frames a second, it feels just fine. But it looks good still. That's what I'm talking about. Like, people want to call the Xbox Series S a weak system, or that it's not a next gen system. Like, I hear that argument from these people all the freaking time. They're like, why would you waste your money on that? Well, let's look at this from a certain point of view, okay? PlayStation 5 has HDMI 2.1, support for 4K at 120 frames a second, right? Xbox Series X has HDMI 2.1, support for 4K at 120 frames a second. With Dolby Vision support, you've got VRR, all of these features. To get a TV, a 4K TV that has all of those features that you can use, you are starting at $800. You're starting at $800, and then it only goes up from there. So $800 just for a TV to take advantage of those extra features. You know how many people are just going to keep the same TV they already got if they got a 4K TV? Probably a lot. So right there, you got $800 just for the TV. So if you look at Series S, Series S has support for all those features too. It has support for HDMI 2.1, 4K at 120 frames a second, albeit there's probably not going to be that many games, if any, that are going to be 4K at 120 on the Series S. But what you do get is, say you already have one of those TVs that, you know, that have HDMI 2.0. Well, the cool thing is about HDMI 2.0 is it will do 1440p at 120 frames a second. It will do 1080p at 120 frames a second. Yeah, I mean, you already have the best of both worlds if you pick up a Series S, and that's on a 4K TV. Some games are going to look really good. Like I said in my review the other day, you just sit back a little bit further and like generally image quality is going to look okay for the most part, depending on if it's a 4K game or if it's a 1440p game, or if it's, you know, like 1080p. Most of the time, just sitting back a little bit will help with that. The biggest thing is having the Dolby Vision or the HDR support. Those there are going to definitely help image quality a lot as well. So that's just with 4K. With 4K, I still think that the Series S is definitely a little bit underpowered for 4K. In general, you know, for the most part, it is pretty underpowered for 4K. But if you hook that thing to a 1440p monitor like I got now, then you get all those features, you know, VRR, variable refresh rate. You get all of the features that the Series S has, and you get a sharp, crisp, clean picture. Now, I'm telling you, sitting right here, you see this TV, and then I got the monitor right here. They're like neck and neck. I mean, they're almost touching each other. That's how close they are together. With MXGP 2021 having both games, you know, loaded on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S, it is almost identical. Like you can barely notice that there's a little bit higher of a resolution. Actually, you really can't tell that there's a higher resolution. To be completely honest with you, they both look sharp, crisp, clean. They look exactly the same when it comes to resolution. What does change is a little bit of the draw distance. It looks a little bit different. For some reason, on the Xbox version and the PlayStation version, the PlayStation version looks a little more zoomed in, and the Xbox version looks a little more zoomed out. And it doesn't matter. I could set the camera to the exact same, and they both look the exact. Like, one looks more zoomed out. Like the draw distance actually looks. But I mean, you can still see all the trees. You can still see everything, like on the ground in the dirt, right next to the bikes and everything. I mean, it's almost impossible to distinguish which one looks better. They both look good. The one big thing on the PlayStation 5 version of MXGP 21 is the main loading screen looks way cleaner, way sharper, way more way higher detailed than either Series X or Xbox Series S. But it's when you get into the races themselves that everything kind of falls apart. You know, I mean, it looks the same. And that goes for Xbox Series X. On that game actually looks a lot higher resolution and a lot more crisp and clean than both of them when you're actually on a 4K TV. So that's kind of weird, you know, the menu looks kind of blurry, or not blurry, but like not as crisp and not as clean as the PlayStation 5. But like the in-game, like when you're in-game, the Xbox Series X version looks better than both of the other two. It just looks better than both of the other two. There's a lot heavier motion blur on the PlayStation 5 version too, as opposed to either Series S or Series X. So now we get to another game, another newer release, that Riders Republic. Now this one has an open world. This is an extremely curious thing though, and I feel like this has a lot more to do with just bad optimization for the PlayStation 5 version than Series S or Series X beating it. Series X and Series S both do have support for Dolby Vision in that game. That game does support Dolby Vision, so that automatically just makes that game look better, period. Like, period. When you turn off the Dolby Vision, it looks wow. Like, the difference on that game alone with Dolby Vision is pretty dramatic. Like, it looks really good. PlayStation 5 version on that, on a 4K TV, looks blurry. Like, it does. It looks blurry. It looks freaking terrible. It does not look like that on Xbox Series S or Series X. Like, it looks way better on the Xbox platform. And like I said, this is not like to like cap on PlayStation 5 or anything. This literally falls down to terrible like I think it's just not optimized good on PlayStation 5. Like, the color palette just looks terrible. The blurriness is just way too much. Like, it when you go around a corner and you look at the mountainside, it just looks blurrier. It looks like it did on the beta, in the beta for the Xbox Series X. When I played the beta for 6 days, that looked like blurry, but when the game actually came out, it looked freaking phenomenal. And I mean, when I log in, Riders Republic has these has like the Ubisoft Connect. So wherever my progress is on the Xbox version, it carries right over to the PlayStation version. I'm in the exact same spots. The same with Assassin's Creed. The same with, Watch Dogs Legion, I believe, is the same thing. Like, there's a lot of games that, like, your wherever, like, your save file is in their cloud. Like, you're wherever. It just carries over to all of those games. So that's pretty cool. I really appreciate that. So it does give me, like, I can see things like for the most part. The PlayStation 5 version of that game, like, I really just feel like it is unoptimized. So I'm not giving Xbox a win on that just because of the fact that I feel like they could do a lot better with the PlayStation version, because I've seen a lot better on the PlayStation version. I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks almost identical on both consoles, like the Xbox and the Series X. I mean, even the Series S competes with them. So, like I said, if you have a 1440p monitor with your Xbox Series S, you are getting almost like for like image quality and what's it called? Image quality and performance with the bigger consoles. Like, it's almost indistinguishable. Like, it's pretty freaking good. I'm not just saying that. That's why I'm pretty excited about the Series S, because now that I got this monitor, I feel really good about it. I just got done playing probably like 35 minutes of Tales of Arise. That is one of my favorite games that came out in 2021. Tales of Arise. Freaking beautiful. I'm getting, because this game here, because Tales of Arise has a, it's like a 1080p 60 frames a second mode, or a 1440p with an unlocked frame rate. And I'm playing it on the 1440p mode with the unlocked frame rate, and oh my gosh, like, that is freaking awesome. I've gotten into some battles, and some of the places, like on the place, because the PlayStation 5 does not have VRR support. Like, it doesn't have VRR. Like, the PlayStation 5 does not have VRR support. So when you're playing in the 4K mode on the PlayStation 5, like, you're getting drops into like the 45s on the 4K mode. And it's noticeable. You can see just how it goes, and then you'll get the screen tearing across it. Well, I'm playing on Series S at 1440p native resolution on this monitor, and I'm getting a pretty smooth experience. I'm not getting any of the screen tearing. I mean, you can tell a little bit when it starts to like there's some a little bit of like where you can tell that the frame rate's kind of dipping, but it looks smooth overall. So it's just one of those things where, like, man, you can actually play this game at a 1440p resolution and still have a pretty decent time for the most part. Like, I'm not joking. Like, this is pretty impressive. In terms of, like, I think my review still stands the same for the most part. Like, a lot of these games that I have, like Far Cry 6, yeah, it's indistinguishable. Like, you cannot tell the difference. 1440p at 60 frames a second looks sharp and crisp on a 1440p screen. It looks just as good as it does on a 4K TV running on the PlayStation 5. It looks fine. So when I compare Xbox Series S in the future to PlayStation 5, that's just because I'm running Xbox Series S at a native resolution on a native screen, whereas PlayStation 5, is the standard bearer for for PlayStation games. A lot of people have PlayStation. A lot of people are enthusiastic about PlayStation, and they're going to buy PlayStation. So that's why I've chosen to continuously compare, the Xbox Series S game to the PlayStation 5 game. I feel like I'm not saying that the Xbox Series S is better than the PlayStation 5. All I'm simply trying to convey by doing this is that you can have a next-gen experience on an Xbox Series S if you have it hooked up to a 1440p monitor. That'll give you almost a like-for-like experience what the PlayStation 5 or even the Series X is going to offer you, just at a lower resolution on a smaller screen. If you hook your Series S up to a 4K screen and you have a OLED, and you have an OLED that can super sample and upscale things, it's going to look fine too. Like, this Series S looks and runs fine on my 4K TV, but I wanted to see this on a native screen to just see just how much of a difference that really makes. And if you take a game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla has a dynamic resolution when you're in the performance mode. It also has that on the Series S too. But with 1080p going to 1440p is a lot less than 1440p trying to go up to 4K, if you know what I mean. Because it bottoms out at 1440p and then goes all the way up to 4K, like, dynamically. But 1080p to 1440p, it's nowhere near the jump in resolution, so it looks sharper, it looks crisper, and it feels better on the Series S on a native screen for the most part. Like, it looks and feels amazing on Xbox Series X, but I'm just saying, like, it has a tendency to look sharper as well as still holding that 60 frames a second on Xbox Series S. This is pretty cool, man. Like, I was on the fence about Series S. I knew Series S was a pretty decent machine. I knew that it was going to compete. I knew it was going to do pretty good. But from what I'm finding in my testing and actually sitting here and playing these games, I don't understand how there's other outlets out there that are just, they just ramble off, like, oh, it's 1440p, or it's this or this or this. And like, the fact that you can have a next-gen experience on an Xbox Series S for $600, you could buy a Series S and a nice monitor, and you could have like a Game Pass subscription, and you can have a next-gen experience that we're getting on next-gen on the PS5 and Series X on a 4K TV. You can, in fact, have that experience on a 1440p monitor with your Xbox Series S. Not all games run at 4K on Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5. Some of them drop as low as 1440p dynamically all the way back up to 4K. You are going to have the exact same experience on a 1440p monitor as we're getting on these bigger consoles. People say, well, it's dropping from 1440p to 900p on games like Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon. Dude, it drops all the way to 1440p on my 4K TV if I want 60 frames a second. That's almost like going from 4K to that's almost like going from 1440p to 900p. Like, it's like 900p is actually better resolution on the Series S on a 1440p TV than 1440p is on a 4K TV. You'd have to go all the way down to 720p to actually get the exact double drop that we're getting. We're going from 4K to 1440p. You're getting better resolution on Xbox Series S than you are on PlayStation, or than you are on the Xbox Series X when it comes to that game, with the same with the same performance. So when you hear people complaining about the 900p drop, just remind them that, hey man, you're not hitting 4K all the time either. You're dropping to 1440p. So it just makes sense. Like you're losing less resolution on the Series S on a lot of games when they go to 900p as opposed to like 4K. I don't know if that made sense to anybody or whatnot, but yeah, from 1440p to 720p, that's exactly two. From 1440p to 4K, that's exactly two levels. Boom, boom. You go 1440p, 1800p, 4K. So when it comes to the resolution, the Xbox Series S delivers exactly what Microsoft basically said it would do. It delivers exactly, and within those boundaries of 1080p to 1440p. Like, it's there. Performance, resolution is going to differ from game to game, and that's acceptable. Even if it goes all the way down to 720p on the Xbox Series S, that is perfectly okay. 720p is perfectly okay all the way back up to that is in line with, yes, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X in performance when they're hooked up to a 4K TV. That is perfectly okay. So, like, all I'm trying to say is, yes, the Xbox Series S is a next-gen console where it sits for a 1440p to 1080p monitor. Like, that's perfect. If you got a 65-inch 1080p TV, perfect. Boom, you're going to have an amazing experience, but you are not going to get HDR support. The only way you're getting HDR support is if you get a monitor. A monitor will give you HDR support. A 1080p TV with Vivid on will look a little better. There are 1080p TVs out there that actually do have a better color gamut than some. So be selective on what you're picking, and you'll end up with a decent experience for the most part. So that's basically all I got to say about this. Xbox Series S with a 1440p monitor is equivalent to a Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5 on a 4K TV. So if that's all you take out of this, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to take out of it. So with that, if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.